So hi everyone. Thanks for coming to the coffee session today. So happy to be able to provide some new interesting topic. I hope it's interesting for you as well. So it's based on, you guys, most of you know that I'm doing research in omnichannel retail and specifically in the context of assortments. So assortment as your products you offer on different channels. So I came across some interesting paper, and at first I was fascinated, and then I started questioning some of the propositions. So what they talk about is they specifically argue that the new product development process, so that concept also mostly familiar, is influenced by within an omnichannel setting. So they propose that is actually enhanced. So new product development actually benefits from an omnichannel strategy. And then they have like some propositions to what extent, how they extend the new product development. And then one specific argumentation is that there are going to be channel specific products. So that means products specifically designed for channels. So that was not the case back in 10 years, 20 years since the beginning of retailing. So that's why I was fascinated about it. So it started, it starts that the channels are actually now influencing specific other functions within the business. Yeah, I don't want to talk that much about it. I just dive in now. So you see two concepts are addressed now. So, and this presentation is based on that paper. So there's channels and new product development. So new product development is basically the functional activity in a business, developing and introducing a new product into market. And we know there are different concepts like the Stagegate model, or later on the lean startup approach, based on the MVP concept. So what you see here is a depiction of that Stagegate model. On the left side, you see that Stagegate model. Also visible are the stages, and usually that typically it starts with some ideation process, and then it goes into the design process. So how to shape that actually the product. So it could also be a service, of course, and then it goes on testing, experimenting, and then if requirements are met, it's good to go to launch into the market. So and then of course there are some iterative processes. So this whole model is nothing specific. You will also find that in engineering, design, process disciplines, for example. And however, you see here, different relations to different aspects in an omnichannel context. We have consumers and trade partners linked to each of those. And what these guys propose is that, when you apply an omnichannel setting, you have like more sophisticated channel structure, you have more integration and data, activity data exploitation, which is also enhanced, and based on these things which are leveraged, it can help to improve new product development. So I don't want to go into each of those. I just want to focus on the sixth one here, which is here in the model located here. So it starts from the launch. So basically, when you have a new product launched, you will gather data, knowledge based on channel, consumer, whatever. So in this case, based on channel, there's a loop back, a feedback loop back to the ideation process, right? So how we can improve this further on. So that's where they position this channel specificity of product development. And they provided two examples. And then I started thinking about, is it actually channel specific, or is it actually still consumer specific? So Picnic, most of you know this brand. This name is a Dutch online grocery retailer, quite successful, and they're characterized by those small electric cars, which they use to deliver their, the orders, similar to postage delivery. And then they came across some specific problems. So everybody wanted to have Heineken be delivered. And then they realized, okay, Heineken is only delivered in this form, like in a 24 bottle crate, which is heavy, which is large, and it's just too bulky and inconvenient to have it like here in those small electric. I don't know if you ever seen those cars, like quite neat, like quite small, and I heard they're based actually on forklift technology, which I found also interesting. So what they did is they approached Heineken, and then they were thinking, look, guys, we have a huge demand here. People want to have this delivered. However, we don't have any concept in reducing weight. And it's obviously they want to achieve some, capacity, reaching some capacity. So mostly 24 or no bottle or whatever. And then they developed this a basic cardboard, which, captures up to six bottles. So you're not required to have 6 bottles, up to 6 bottles. Easy to use, easy to store, easy to stack, and fits very well to the small concept of the electric car. And it saves up energy, it saves up packaging costs, and it's even suitable to, when you return the bottles. So that shows, based on the conditions and circumstances of delivering a good to a customer, or via e-commerce, or via a web shop, via a web online grocery shop, it had an effect on the design of the product, to the packaging, extent of the packaging. The bottles remain still the same. So that's what they not yet touched yet. So when we go back to the model, the Stagegate model, so basically with this loop, with this knowledge, they altered, they redesigned the packaging and improved efficiency for transportation, etc. So that paper also provides a second example. It's about the detergent Tide. So it's the one, I think the most famous one in the US. So they developed this, what's called the Ecobox. It's the same context. So when they start thinking, okay, this is very inconvenient to deliver in an e-commerce channel, so they develop this one. It looks differently, and it's based also on a card box concept. And yeah, and one interesting thing about this is the detergent itself. So, that liquid inside, it has also been altered. It's labeled as, ultra concentrated liquid detergent. And the reason why they were able to do that is because, apparently that's what they claim, the packaging, the cardboard packaging, the material allowed to sustain, to be more robust for, I don't know, for any disruption or, for movement. And it's not affecting the detergent liquid. So apparently this is the case when you have these plastic bottles. So that's how they argue that they're able, because of the new design, they are able to make the whole liquid, the detergent, more efficient. So they're losing less plastic, less water, less packaging in general, less space coverage. So they have like this convenient factor design, and overall they have like experienced very, very successful delivery with this. So in Procter & Gamble, they claim that the first time they actually designed some product based on a channel perspective, right? So again, when we go back, this is a result of this feedback loop. Yes, and first I was fascinated, and then I was thinking, okay, but for me, it still looks like it's more like consumer oriented. Is it still consumer? Because, you can start arguing, for example, the Heineken bottles. So why not put that also in a supermarket store? There are also these 6-pack versions in a supermarket store. And also this one, like for me, this looks like very, very convenient. You know, it even has those legs, you know, to elevate it a bit, and it's efficient. So why not introduce that also to the physical market? So these were some questions. And then I was thinking, what other example might there be? Because I was still struggling, is it channel specific or is it customer specific? And one example I came across is this one, is EDC, the PlayStation 5. And, you know, Sony introduced this one, I don't know, a couple of months ago. And there are two distinctive versions. One version is, you know, delivered with a physical disk drive. So there's a built-in Blu-ray player, an actual Blu-ray player, which, you know, needs the physical discs. And there's another version which, you know, doesn't have it. Like it's without the disk drive, delivered without it, and it's labeled the digital edition. So from one perspective, you can argue, okay, this is also channel specific because the digital version is more convenient for online conditions. However, for me, it looks still like it's more customer oriented, right? So the reason might be not only the channel specificity. You can argue, I don't know what Sony did, probably they learned that 40% or whatever are digital natives, and they would like to have things downloaded digitally instead of, you know, being bothered going out to a shop and buying those games, right? And that with the other one, with the original one, would be different. So you would need to buy separately those games. So that's something what I wanted to share with you. I don't know what you guys are thinking of this. Like, how does a product, is it still consumer oriented? So this one, for me, it's still consumer oriented. It just happens that it's more convenient for delivery, etc. But at the end, if it does not fit expectations for the consumer, there's no use for it, right? And here in this paper, they argue that the channel specificity is one of the angles how to develop these products. Yeah, so that's what I wanted to share. I don't know what you guys think of it, just to initiate some discussion. Maybe you can just argue from different perspectives. Yeah, anybody, some comments?
Yes, I have.
Yes, please, Marco.
Thanks, Gueltekin, for the interesting presentation. Actually, yeah, you're quite right, because if you go to the picnic and the tide, I would have thought exactly the opposite, because if you go by yourself to a market store, it would be much better for you to have a 6-bottle packaging instead of having the 24, maybe, because if you are buying online, of course, there is someone else to bring this stuff home, and so that maybe you can go for the 50 bottles package yeah. Or something like that, so that you would increase the number of the bottles in a pack, and the same applies to Tide. If you go for online shopping, because you don't have to carry by yourself, you would go for the kind of big bottles or something bigger. And if you go physically, of course, you want something smaller, something easy to transport. And so yes, I had certainly your same thoughts, and the same applies to the Xbox. What is it? The PlayStation, the PS. And for example, if you want to go for omni-channel, something would be that to have not something that is not physical at all, something that is virtual. So you would have a virtual PlayStation, and that would be really something that is omni-channel. So something that is moving, because this is something that probably, yeah, they thought about the customers, but about the customers is of course improving increasing the interaction with the customer. But not sure that is maybe it's led by omnichannel, but to me is still is optimizing the physical, the traditional physical channel. So that that's the same impression. I don't know. So I would have thought of something that more radical, as I said, as something like the virtual PlayStation or something in the case of the detergent. I don't know if it's something that can come directly with something with a 3D a printer that you install at home and you have. I don't know if you can print the beer, but something like
Not
that.
yet.
Something that is I mean really novel on that sense.
Yeah, exactly. Like interesting. Yes, like definitely. And like what I also think is it's always multidimensional. So when you might have this channel specific view. However, at the end, when we start discussing it, so for me, that's evidence that it's not clear, it's not sharp enough, because, you can argue customer dimension, you can argue even, technology dimension. Is it actually, here, for example, Sony says that, having not that disk drive in the box saves up €100 or dollars of manufacturing costs. So that will be also some motivation not to have it. So there's always a multidimensional criteria, I think. And you might also remember a couple of years ago when Apple first introduced the first, like at some stage there was this new MacBook series, and they totally got rid of any physical drives consequently, and everybody was laughing, questioning what are they doing, etc. But based on some foresight or for some trend prediction, what they did was actually a right decision, right? So there's also another angle to look at it. And so I found this is fascinating, but also difficult to look at the same time, because in my research, I also argue that when a retailer arranges or optimizes a product channel fit, there needs to be some some characteristic where you can say, okay, this product is more suitable for this channel, and this one is more suitable for online channel or whatever, right? And when it comes to those things here, that we add a new layer of discussion. I don't know if anybody else has some comments. And also, yes, yeah, as you mentioned, Mark, of totally virtual. So these concepts are actually in the pipeline of all those developers. I heard, like, cloud-based entertainment, cloud-based gaming. So you would not need a console at your place anymore. You just need a stable connection, and everything is calculated in the cloud and then managed, as we have it with Office applications right now, right? With whatever we need, we don't have like a physical a folder space here anymore. Everything is now stored either digitally, locally in your laptop, or in a cloud. Yes, and then the next step will be, as you mentioned, a printer which prints me whatever I want to have, like, designed from that service.
Yes, so can I, like, Gueltekin, I think from just your last comment, I think you think that the 3D printer might be a little bit futuristic, but I think it's actually not so far away on, even like when we look at food printing. Like, I know it's at the moment relatively expensive still, but so it might be a possibility. And one thing what sparked at least an idea or thought around this was kind of the flexibility. Like you focused very much on these kind of channels and the design. However, I think what we are at the moment far more flexible on even the product design, packaging, and to customize these. So basically, like you're just taking the beer example, like I can basically even we could assemble the amount of, like, it doesn't need to be even a 6-pack, it can be 2, 3, it can be different variations. And I think that's what we actually have at the moment. We are not static on producing this and even distributing this. So that type of flexibility and the distribution as well, like, of course, like maybe when I do my weekly shopping, I buy maybe whatever this type of it, but also like the delivery and all of this kind of, and that picnic truck shows it as well, kind of. So it's a very range of things. So you are not bound on just one type of product. And I think information and digital technologies have a big play in this. So first of all, even just analyzing and knowing and recommending the different variations which might be suitable at that moment. So we know much more about the customers. We can derive some insights from the customers, and also, of course, all the connection around data exchanges. And I think this provides the flexibility around it. So I think digital transformation has a lot to give in that kind of supply chain product, like physical products. And to me, this is quite interesting that on the end, we're talking a lot in IVI about digital transformation, digital technologies, but on the end, we still have real customers and we have products to deliver to satisfy like the demand around this. So, and that combination between the physical world and the digital world and the flexibility this gives, this is really exciting, I think. And there are lots of research opportunities around this. So this is just a few thoughts when I listen to your presentation on channel and product designs around this.
Oh, yes. Yeah, thanks, Marcus, for that comment. I think that was an important comment. You mentioned flexibility. And now we can, we start realizing, so these examples are just expressions of a specific customization, right? So picnic has a certain context and type has another context. So based on this context, they shaped this kind of, let's say, optimized or more convenient expression of a product packaging design in that dimension. So packaging is adjusted here. However, in an omnichannel context, which is highly complex, more variations would be needed to identify and, the core of those variations, right? And then based on that, how can digital technologies help us to, to have this flexibility, to have this customizability in order to, to adapt to the channels. For example, let's say Picnic introduces stores. So now they have optimized all the operations for all those small packages. So now they need huge bulk packaging. How much time would it take for them to change their operations to, a retail context? So things like this. And for that reason, they would need to know what levers to, to address in order to adapt quickly.
Yeah, and I'm just like, because it's the coffee and talk from IBI, so I basically just thought about the coffee example. So years ago, it was the standardized coffee. Now, basically in each household, we probably have our own coffee machine with whatever, all the options. So it's already very individualized. And all of this kind of, I think, that merge between the physical world and what digital technologies and information can help with, merges together and provides that customizability and the flexibility to really individualize products, the delivery mode, and all of this around it. And I think you mentioned it before as well. It's multidimensional. It has many factors within that. So, for example, you didn't mention, I think, sustainability or sustainability aspects are important around this. So it's not just the convenience of a product, but it's also, for example, the environmental impact, the energy consumption, all the sustainability aspects around this. And that might even impact then the customer decision. So it's quite a lot of various things. And when we think about, for example, smart manufacturing, where we have more flexible manufacturing facilities, approaches, and more distributed facilities, but also in logistics, supply chain, all of that smart manufacturing helps a lot to configure that and makes it very flexible and customizing in a long time.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, if I can add something as well. So we were talking about the concept of the digital transformation, and just checking the examples that you put in the presentation. You are talking about something that is conceptualized as elastic manufacturing, which is a concept that many also research groups are taking into account, and to see how, for example, as you mentioned, the different variations, not just in the supply chain, but also in the way that you create the different products. So how you can manage that elasticity within your company and within all the processes involved when you are going to provide those different products. So the first thing that maybe is important to highlight here is that when you want to digitalize, also you are going to say, okay, for example, we need a new channel, or we are going to digitalize this specific channel, but then you need to check under which processes you are going to be impacted in your company. For example, the way that you produce the products, the way that you deliver the products. So all of the other components in your company are going to be impacted. It's not just to impact the channel, the specific digitalization of the channel at the front end of your company. Is also digitalizing and improving the other components of your company that need to be updated and changed. And I think that the 3D printing is a good example, that if you have it in your company, you don't need to go to the service provider. For example, you have inside of your company, so something changed. So you need to do something else. And a good example maybe is also the way that you buy a ticket. When you buy a ticket, maybe your application says that everything is correct, but you go to the airport and you log into other system, nothing is the same, something needs to be updated. So you see that there that there is a misalignment between what you get at the beginning and what you are receiving from the company. But I think that in general, these are very good examples that, as Marcus mentioned also, there is that integration of different requirements. Normally we think that the user requirements are enough, but not. We need all the requirements from the internal stakeholders, from the sustainability part. So many requirements, multidimensional, as you mentioned, multidimensional aspects that need to be addressed when we wanted to also face those challenges of the digital transformation. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Viviana. Yes, great comment. And it makes sense. I mean, earlier in the beginning of the presentation, I wanted to highlight everything was very simple back in the beginning. There was this one channel, and nobody actually realized how significant those channels are going to be in the future. It was just some, distribute means of some pipeline helping to get your product to the consumer. Now it actually affects, there's an effect backwards, telling you, listen, you need to adjust this and that in order to still meet the requirements of the consumer. And one of maybe the last comment, like not another serious comment. So what you see here, this is basically also based on communications from the manufacturer and Picnic. Obviously, when Picnic developed this cardboard, obviously they want to promote it and they want to highlight, oh, it is more convenient, good for the environment, etc., good for the consumer. So it's also a lot of marketing. I'm pretty sure there is this multi-dimensional approach behind it. Obviously they had to rethink even just the allocation of their crates in the warehouses. So it would start there, like how if you use those bottles from those crates, so how is the allocation management? How did it adapt, for example, for that? So this is what you mean by alignment. So just to emphasize that, so not everything what the manufacturers would tell you is based on your consumer, and then, you know, Procter & Gamble, it's a quote for the first time, you know, these are typical terms in market for the first time, we are the first, a product was designed, blah, 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 etc. Yeah, great. Thanks for those comments. I just want to conclude the presentation with highlighting our upcoming events. So later today, actually in an hour, we have our first webinar coming up, kicking off our autumn webinar series with titled Collective Intelligence and How Data Can Be Used for the Public Good, with a great lineup. And the following the webinar is going to be on digital retail, which I like. And this is going to be going to discuss what to do now after the COVID pandemic struck the whole industry. So in terms of what retailers would need to do, you know, in order to sustain in this environment, in this ambiguous environment, uncertain environment. And again, just to highlight, these are our engagement channels. So visit us at on LinkedIn or via Twitter. Get subscribed to our newsletter, and you know, also please check our newsfeed on our homepage. So thanks a lot for your attention, and thanks for the exchange, guys.